your piece about the Duke volleyball players' claim and your dubiousness in the face of it, you point out that there's a tendency to echo back to the past. And in the past, we know these things really did happen. You know, Michael Brown is Emmett Till 2.0, this kind of thing.
Exactly.
And I think if I were searching for an explanation for this difference between for the fact that there is no Latino Michael Brown in our public imagination, that's where I'd look. I'd look to historical narrative. I'd look to how it is that we understand the present moment in the context of all that has come before. And for African Americans, this kind of violent victimization and at the hands of law enforcement in the case at hand, but more generally, lynching, is a part of the past. I'm not saying that such events didn't happen to Latino victims as well. I'm sure they did, and I don't know as much about it perhaps as I could. But the memory of those events seems to burn more hotly and more vividly in the imaginations, the contemporary imagination. So people are taking the next chapter in making these claims. I mean, a congressman, I think this is Bobby Rush, correct me if I'm wrong, on the floor. This is in the wake of Trayvon Martin, the hoodie, he just wanted a Coke or whatever. He just wanted a drink and a candy, and he had a hoodie, and he ended up paying with his life. That was the story about Trayvon Martin. Well, that was not exactly an accurate account, but a congressman in the well of the House of Representatives pulls a hood out from under his suit over his head, violating the dress code of the chamber. But in order to invoke this continuity with, you see, we Black people were all embedded in this historical, ongoing, racist machination. And I think that Jussie Smollett, I mean, it's a trope. It's a pulling something off the shelf that, stimulates our memory of and our fury at and our sense of resignation in the face of the implacable American racism. And no, it doesn't seem to me, an outsider, that kind of sentiment has anything like the salience amongst the Latinos, as does this trope and this manipulation of historical narrative on behalf of present day political objective, as it has in the political life of Black Americans.
I think an anthropologist looking at our times, something we're so used to we barely think of it as a thing, is an anthropologist would be perplexed to see the degree to which victimization is exaggerated. It's a major trope. Victimization is one thing. And so, you see that in the past in particular and sometimes now. But the idea that there's an enlightenment in exaggerating and making things up, that's weird. I wonder about whether that's happened anywhere else in human civilization. It's a very modern condition. And it's a problem because I don't think it creates anything good. I think there's some people who think that kind of exaggeration is somehow an advance, that it's a way of changing thought to push the envelope somewhat. I've never heard anybody admit it, but you get the feeling that's what's going on deep down. But I'm not sure what kind of change it advances. It just creates a general kind of skepticism, which most people aren't going to voice in public. They're not going to write a column about it. But when somebody says, somebody was shouting nasty racialized words at me from the stands, and it became this raucous outcry, and I could barely get through the game. And it turns out that the audience was really just sitting there the way any other, audience at a volleyball game at Brigham Young University. How raucous was it going to get? It turns out that isn't true. That's not good for the American polity, nor is it good for the evidence to come in that it wasn't true and for the good thinking venues to not say anything. I don't see what that builds. That's not right. Because if a racist does anything, then we have to hear about that for the next 6 months down to every nitty gritty detail. But we don't want to hear about the stories that turn out not to be true. Although, as I say in the piece, Wilfred Riley has a whole book, Hate Crime Hoax, outlining hundreds of cases like this. Attention must be paid. It's a problem in our modern society, exaggerating your victimhood rather than being honest about it.
Yeah, Will Riley, he's a political scientist, teaches at
A black
Kentucky State University. He's African-American. Kentucky State is a historically black institution. He's from Chicago. And he does have this book, which we should link to. And he tries to be systematic about it. He tries to be quasi-scientific about trying to examine the universe of claims and assess the extent to which so many of them have proven to be empty claims. Nooses outside of dorm rooms, supposed racist treatment, et cetera. So,
and everybody has to realize we're not talking about one thing every 5 years. This happens a lot. It's at the point where you have to be skeptical as you hear about any colorful case. It happens a lot. And what's a lot? Well, it happens to an extent which, if we were talking about cop killings, we would consider a complete epidemic. That's a lot. 400 during the 2000 teens is a lot.
Cop killings, 400 during the 2000 teens? Is that what you said?
400 hoaxes. Undeniable hoaxes.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot.